It begins not with a choice, but with the subtle recognition that you have been here before, not necessarily in this room or with these exact worries, but in this specific emotional position, this precise weight upon the chest, this familiar quality of quiet, sinking certainty. We talk constantly about moving forward, about breaking cycles, about escaping the gravitational pull of the past. But what if the past is not a destination you escaped from, but a template you are rigorously and repeatedly recreating? What if the loop you perceive yourself to be trapped within is not a malfunction of the universe, but the perfect execution of an internal design specification? It feels like a cage, yes, but cages are built by architects. And the only architect whose specifications matter here is the one residing in the echo chamber of your own emotional history. We have this powerful, ingrained mythology of linear progression. That time moves forward, therefore we must move forward with it. But emotion, the deepest current of our existence, is rarely linear. It is cyclical. It is seasonal. It is the endless, quiet return of the same psychological landscape, only rendered in new lighting and with different actors. You are stuck in the same life for a reason, and that reason is usually a kind of unconscious, unwavering fidelity to the known limits of the self. Think about the moments that define your struggle, the job you stay in, the argument you inevitably restart, the self-sabotage that arrives just as success becomes tangible. These are not random errors. They are emotional anchors. They are the structural supports for an identity you have agreed to maintain, even if that identity is defined by struggle. There is a tremendous comfort in the known quantity of our own misery. It is predictable. It is reliable. It confirms the oldest, most foundational stories we tell ourselves about our worth, our destiny, and our capacity for joy. To step outside that specific, familiar geometry of pain means stepping into absolute, structural uncertainty. And the deeper part of the mind, the part that prioritizes survival above all else, even above happiness, prefers the known pain over the unknown freedom. Freedom is computationally expensive. It requires the discarding of deeply held, highly efficient internal programming. Stasis, however, is cheap. It is the path of least resistance for the established self. This is the silent contract we sign. I will accept this ceiling, provided I am never truly surprised by the floor. This isn't about laziness. This is about psychological inertia. If you trace back the origin of your current predicament, the specific flavor of dissatisfaction you are currently experiencing, you will not find a sudden, external catastrophe. You will find an echo, a repeating vibration of a fundamental dynamic learned decades ago. Perhaps it is the dynamic of rejection, endlessly sought out in new relationships only to validate the initial lesson that you must be pushed away. Perhaps it is the dynamic of scarcity, which ensures that even when resources are plentiful, you experience the tightening panic of immediate loss, ensuring the necessary tension for your established identity to feel relevant. We are not victims of the loop. We are the system operators dedicated to its flawless execution. And the retention strategy of this unconscious system is brilliant. It uses distraction. It focuses all your attention on the content of the problem, the specifics of the argument, the demands of the boss, the details of the bank account, while diverting attention entirely from the structure of the problem. The structure is always the same. Only the details are swapped out, like props on a stage built for a single, unchanging play. This inability to see structure over content is the primary mechanism of being stuck. We spend years trying to fix the details, hoping that the right job title, the right partner, or the perfect apartment will somehow collapse the underlying emotional architecture. But you can change every single variable on the outside, and if the operating system remains unchanged, the new variables will simply be arranged into the old, familiar pattern. The mind is a powerful engine of replication. It seeks coherence. It seeks internal consistency. If the foundational premise of your selfhood is, for example, I must strive to be worthy, then every circumstance that arises will be automatically filtered and shaped to necessitate striving. Even when the goal is achieved, the striving cannot cease because the identity is contingent upon the effort, not the reward. And so, the loop tightens. The reason you feel stuck is because your definition of self requires the conditions of being stuck to be true. It requires the tension, the minor tragedy, the constant striving against a self-imposed limitation to feel authentically you. Consider the moment of near breakthrough, the moment when the pattern starts to fray, when genuine possibility seems to open up clean and wide. What happens? Usually, an anxiety arrives that feels disproportionate to the positive nature of the impending outcome. That anxiety is the alarm system of the established self. It is the psyche realizing that the foundational structure is under threat. It is the unconscious saying, "This isn't in the script." And the self, seeking safety, often performs a precise, calibrated act of sabotage, not out of malice, but out of desperate loyalty to the established emotional contract. We mistake this sabotage for weakness. It is, in fact, tremendous focused psychological strength applied in the service of preservation. What you are preserving is the emotional homeostasis, the familiar temperature of the soul. We are wired to return to this temperature, regardless of whether it is slightly too hot or devastatingly cold. And the most potent illusion used to keep the cycle turning is the illusion of time lost. We believe that if we step off the repetitive path now, all the effort expended following that path until this moment will have been wasted. This sunk cost fallacy, applied to the entirety of your emotional history, acts as a powerful brake. It demands loyalty to the trajectory already traveled. It whispers, "You have invested 30 years into this way of seeing the world. To change now is to invalidate all those years." This fear of invalidation is often more paralyzing than the fear of future failure. Because true change requires accepting that you have been living according to rules that were unnecessary, perhaps even detrimental. It requires the humiliation of admitting that the grand emotional strategy you've relied on was based on an outdated map. And who are you, if not the keeper of that sacred map? The reason you are stuck is that you have built your identity not upon your potential, but upon your limitations. And every morning you wake up, the first task of the unconscious is to successfully replicate those limitations. We look for external explanations for internal patterns. We blame the circumstances, the economy, the timing, the people we interact with. But if you were truly honest, tracing the exact sequence of events that led to this current feeling of entrapment, you would find your own hand signing the document. Your own decision, made perhaps subtly to prioritize the immediate, dulling relief of the familiar over the sharp, terrifying vitality of the unknown. To break the pattern is not to acquire new skills or new money. It is to tolerate a specific, profound disorientation. It is the tolerance of incoherence. When you intentionally deviate from the established emotional loop, the world doesn't necessarily get better instantly. It gets louder. Your internal systems begin to scream because the expected input has vanished. If your self-definition demands striving and you suddenly find genuine ease, the psyche doesn't celebrate. It panics. It registers this ease as a threat because ease does not compute with the identity. This is the point where most people retreat. They manufacture tension. They reignite the old conflict. They return to the familiar, precisely because the unfamiliar feeling, even if positive, is registered as dangerous instability. The real work of freedom is learning to sit in the dissonance, learning to breathe through the frantic, internal protest that the new structure is generating. If you want to understand why you are stuck, stop analyzing your external results. Analyze your emotional payoff. What is the unconscious reward you receive for remaining precisely where you are? It might be the reward of certainty. It might be the reward of avoiding the harsher judgment that comes with higher stakes. If you truly pursue your potential and still fail, the narrative of failure is much more devastating than failing softly within the confines of your familiar, limited pattern. Staying stuck is often a sophisticated form of damage control, a preemptive defense against the possibility of maximizing regret. We trade massive long-term fulfillment for minor, immediate risk mitigation, and the pattern repeats. The architecture of the repeating life is built on these tiny, continuous evasions. Every time you prioritize the avoidance of discomfort over the necessary action toward growth, you reinforce the existing structure. Every time you choose the familiar narrative, you pour another layer of concrete onto the prison walls. It is not the lack of opportunity that holds you. It is the lack of willingness to dismantle the sacred narrative of your struggle. We hold our suffering close, sometimes, because it feels like the last authentic thing we possess. It is the proof that we have endured. It is the defining characteristic that separates us from those who haven't struggled in precisely this way. To give up the suffering feels like giving up the identity that was forged in the heat of that endurance. And who would you be then? Just a person, moving forward, unburdened. That simple, open expanse of being is often the most terrifying prospect of all. Because it requires improvisation. It requires constructing a self that has never existed before, without relying on the familiar gravitational anchors of past pain. We spend decades perfecting the art of replication. We become masters of the subtle, self-fulfilling prophecy. We learn exactly which conversational triggers will lead to predictable rejection. We know precisely which opportunities to ignore so that the established narrative of being overlooked remains intact. This isn't passive entrapment. This is highly active, sophisticated emotional maintenance. And the only thing capable of interrupting this high-fidelity pattern replication is not a new desire, but a new internal permission. The permission to be disloyal to the past version of yourself, to tolerate the feeling that you are wasting the investment you made in the old struggle. The reason you are stuck is that you have not yet fully granted yourself this permission, because granting it feels like betrayal. It feels like abandoning the character you have played so expertly for so long. And that character, though struggling, was undeniably real. It had history. It had weight. But that character cannot exit the loop, because the loop is the definition of the character. To leave the loop is to leave the character behind. And this is the final, true barrier. It is not the world, or fate, or circumstance that demands your repetition. It is the unwavering, silent oath of allegiance you pledge every morning to the person you were yesterday. And until that allegiance wavers, even slightly, the geometry of your life will remain precise, predictable, and perfectly, devastatingly familiar.